Okay, you are live.
Okay, thank you very much, Hollis. We'll bring the meeting to order at 6:01. And the first thing we do is declaration of a quorum. I see that we have everybody here, so we're good to go. Anybody have a conflict of interest that they wish to bring forward at this point before the meeting starts? Nope. Okay, thank you. You've all had a chance to review the agenda. If I could have someone move that agenda be adopted as presented.
Mr. Chair, there's one addition to the agenda I would like somebody to make for the Charlotte County Ground Search and Rescue request.
I'll make a motion that we accept the agenda along with the Ground Search and Rescue request. I'd also like to put on the agenda too, on the new business too, discussion on having an office opened up in Eastern Charlotte.
Sure.
Sorry, John, I missed that. What was the other point?
The second point was to have discussion on the new business, having an office opened up in Eastern Charlotte.
Okay.
I'll second it. Seconded by Mayor Matthews.
Okay. So we have two changes under new business. With those changes in place, can we have someone move that the agenda be adopted as presented? With the two
that just happened.
Yeah, that's what that just happened. Yeah, I just did that.
Okay. Can I have a seconder, please?
Yeah, that was.
Harvey, you guys are way ahead of me. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Any nays? Since I can't see Denny or Linda. No nays. Okay, thanks. Yep.
I would like to declare a conflict of interest with the agenda now. I am a member of Charlotte County Ground Search and Rescue, so I will not participate in the discussion of that item.
Okay.
And you want me to leave the room, I can.
Go sit in your car, yeah. We'll see if we can find it.
Thanks, Jim.
We're not making a decision.
Okay, we have two sets of minutes. The minutes of the special board meeting of January 12th, 2023, and the minutes of the regular board meeting September 22nd, 2022. If you've all had a chance to review those, and there's no comments, could I have someone move that those minutes from those two meetings be adopted as presented?
I would move adoption of the 2 minutes, or 2 sets of minutes.
Okay, Jim, a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, who was that? You, Brad? Yeah. Okay, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Thank you. Motion moved. Okay, business arising from previous meetings. Weighted voted information. Discussion led by Hollis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to share my screen here. Probably won't be able to read this, but I'm going to share it anyway. It's tiny. You'll notice at the top it says draft not for circulation in red. So I had a meeting with ELG and the other CEOs about this weighted voting. So I just want to give an update. It's not actually finalized yet, but it should be shortly. So essentially what's going to happen is there's 5 different scenarios. There's the votes that are for regular procedural matters, which is 1 member, 1 vote. And that's our standard, and it's just a simple majority on those votes. Examples of that would be voting on various procedural matters during a meeting, like accepting the agenda, that type of thing. Voting on board governance procedures, HR matters related to CEO, like hiring, and performance reviews, approval of contracts, approval of going to tender and awarding the contract, agreement to conduct a study, approval of the regional strategy, approval of transfer from reserve to operation or the other way around, and voting to appoint a chair, executive, and that type of thing. So those are simple majority, one member, one vote votes. Simple majority of weighted votes, in our case, that's going to be that St. Stephen and Eastern Charlotte have 2 votes and everybody else has 1 vote. So that's going to be about the operation or administration of a service. So that would be amendment to service contracts during the year, additional staff outside of the approved budget for services. So let's say we wanted to hire extra people for economic development or something like that. Contract cancellation of a mandated service, which I don't even know how that would happen, but it's one of the examples they gave. Undertaking further activities to change beyond the scope of a service that we're offering, and substantive change that might impact the end user. So that could be, say, a collection schedule if we were in the waste collection business. It also applies to identification of sport, recreation, cultural infrastructure. Determination made under subsection 3.4 that any or all members shall contribute to the cost of infrastructure and apportionment of costs attributed to infrastructure. So they're talking mostly about recreation infrastructure there. So those are majority of the weighted votes. Then we have 2/3 of weighted votes of the members of the board present who are receiving the service votes. So approval of setting of fees for a service, for instance. And that could be, well, actually, I don't even know what that would be because we split those out. But approval of borrowing money for a service. So we were going to go to Municipal Capital Borrowing Board to borrow money to provide a service outside of our core. Those are 2/3 of weighted votes of the members present who are receiving the service. I hope we never have to vote on that. And then there are 2/3 of the members of the board that are present, and that would be for the setting of fees or borrowing of money with respect to matters other than services. So that could be borrowing money for, say, building a new office building, or fees for leasing of space. And then finally, 2/3 of the voting members present who represent at least 51% of the total population represented by all the voting members. And that would be for approval of the annual operating budget. So those are the examples I have so far. Again, this isn't final, and I'm not supposed to circulate this, but it's so small you can't read it anyway. So that's where we are at the moment, and I'll keep the board apprised of any final changes to this.
Seems simple.
That's all you gotta use.
Is there anything that you can see that through you, Chair, that is going to fall like not on there, and then it's going to be, how do we vote on that? Because
It's going to make it difficult for the chair.
I feel bad for the chair and you.
Probably.
Yeah. So they'll have to have like a default if it doesn't fall under any of those buckets. Where does it go? Because I'm sure there is some things that they, believe it or not, but
Yeah. Well, the good news is our board works very well together, and vast majority of our votes are unanimous anyway. So let's just, but there is a possibility that.
There is a possibility, like, let's just say, I'll pick on myself here. Let's say St. Stephen Council didn't want me to vote in favor of the garbage contract, right? That's where my weight would have to be used, I guess.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. No, I guess that kind of makes sense there. Yeah.
Because it's your service.
Yeah, I guess. But again, it's going to be, regardless, I never think I've seen it. So
Not in our time anyway.
the handicap. I get two for.
Yeah. I still think the cardboard cutout idea is. Love to see that.
Okay. Any other questions, comments on the voting guidelines table?
Just one question. How soon do you think they'll have that completed? That's you just answered your
That was a
question.
great reaction.
The answer that I get from the department is always 2 weeks, so I'm going to say 2 weeks.
Yeah, that equals 2 months probably.
This is a eventual thing that you're dealing with? Okay.
Good luck. I gotta be good.
Good luck.
Good answer.
Okay. Next item, committees and nominees.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I had previously identified committees that had come out of last year, but at the last board meeting. But since that time, there's been some requests and discussion about splitting up the Recreation and Tourism Committee into 2 separate committees. Staff has no opinion either way, so that's up to you. But before we get to that, I'm just going to go through what I've got here about the discussion about the committees. So we are looking for members to stay on the committees or to populate the committees, but there are a couple, like the Landfill Advisory Committee has been established, that hasn't changed in operation. It is representative of a wide part of the region, and the members on that committee have been on it for a long time because they're familiar with, the landfill itself, because a lot of it is a very technical kind of, they get the water quality reports, they get the various, different reports about safety there. They might make recommendations on things, or when we have a new expansion or project to do there, it'll go to that committee. Not that it doesn't have openings. We could put more people on that. In fact, we lost our chair, who was the mayor of Harvey, was the chair of that committee. So the next time they meet, they're going to have to pick a new chair. So we could stand to have a couple more people there. Community development is a little bit different than some of the other committees because that was the merger of Vibrant Communities into Regional Service Commission. And so with that, they had a board that was established for a long time. They've done a lot of good work. They've got a lot of tribal knowledge. But that doesn't mean that they're all coming over to community development. But there are probably 3 members on that committee now that would be pretty good to stay. One is the current chair of Vibrant Communities. And then there's 2 others that work regionally anyway. So I had sent out some information previously about what that committee was, people that have expressed interest already in that committee, but it is up to the board to make the appointments. So I'll leave that with you. And the Public Safety Committee is the only other one. It's a special purpose committee, and that's going to have members from RCMP, EMO, probably DNR, a few others. But we still want at least 2 board members on that committee. And then PRAC, of course, is established anyway. But we do have members, their terms are expiring. We extended them last year, if you recall, by motion, just so we could carry on with PRAC. And ideally, it should have 1 member from each community that it serves. Now, as it turns out, as of very, very recently, we serve every community in our region. So some of you have your own PAC. So it wouldn't make any sense for St. Andrews. But for everybody else, and Graham and Ann, I don't know if you were going with your own PAC or not, or we're going to go with our PRAC, but
our intention was to keep our own PAC.
Okay, no problem.
I think we just do, that's what we just signed up for, it.
They're with Brock.
Yeah. So outside of that, it would be good to have representatives from each community that we serve on that committee. And that's probably enough for that committee. The current chair of that committee, Sam Walsh, is from the rural district. And he's very good at that job. And it's a difficult, of all the committees and all the stuff, it's the public facing one. It can be a challenging position. So I would encourage, that position to be kept. And we also have representatives from McAdam, and as far as I know, St. Stephen, he's going to be continuing.
Who?
Matt Rule.
Oh, yeah. I believe so.
Yeah, so experience counts on that one, and subject matter knowledge counts on that committee for sure. Outside of that, though, the recreation, tourism, economic development, transportation, those are all wide open. And again, we want subject matter experts from around the region. They could be under council, or they might not be. And the discussion I would like to have, or that the board, I would like you guys to think about, is how you want to nominate these people. You can find them yourselves and let me know. We can help you with that. I can have an open, like an online kind of thing. We can do this a number of different ways. But how you actually want to nominate those people is kind of up to you. The other part of that is going to be the
They would have to be nominated by this group, this board, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can find somebody, bring it here, but in the end, they have to be nominated by the board.
They have to be appointed by the board.
Appointed, sorry.
Yep, they have to be appointed by the board. And then the other part of this, the other side of this is board members that are going to be on committees. If we're going to go through with the, who gets which one. So I don't want everybody fighting over committees that they're going to be on or anything like that. But there's a number of different ways we can do that. One way I thought I can put a simple online poll where you pick your first, second, third choice maybe of committees, and then we can look at that. Or I'm open to any alternatives that you would like to see.
A lot to take in. Question: public safety, does it have to be a board member? I think that's just a suggestion.
The terms of reference that we have from the province for the Public Safety Committee says that at least 2 board members.
But it's saying it has to be, or does it suggest it? I guess that's the question we got. The reason I'm asking is because my deputy mayor would like to sit on that. He's not a board member, that's the only thing.
Well, yeah, but he's an alternative.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And there's nothing stopping yourself and your deputy mayor. I know it'd be kind of counterproductive to have you both, but
the reason being is our area needs that looked at. I mean, our area got hit a lot last year with a lot of break-ins, and that's with policing, that's that issue, and it has to be looked at. And he's actually the public safety chairman for Eastern Charlotte as well. So,
right. Yeah.
So he'll wear the same hat, just wearing this little too.
David Hatt, right?
David Hatt. Yeah.
Okay.
So I know we talked about it briefly last time, but the way I thought that it would work is that every member of the board brings someone from their community. Yeah. And that's the representative, but board is on top of that. So everyone has a representative, but if you're a board member, I don't care. There's 2 people from St. Stephen on the thing, as long as everybody's got a voice at the table and can communicate what's going back and forth. The speed of use public safety, like to not have someone from Campobello on that, that's the situation. Campobello is a lot different than the situation in St. Andrews. So I would say we each, not to simplify it, but every committee has a representative from each community. Mm-hmm. And I don't know your thoughts on an alternate, because that's important too, that if they can't make it, someone else can go. But any board member around here that goes to these committees would be on top of those, would be the way that I would envision it. So that way, if it changes up, you don't have to worry about this community not being represented.
Mm-hmm. So let's play this out though. Now we go that the committee's one thing, because the personal will committee is not going to be an issue, but when the board member shows up with their alternate at a meeting, they both don't sit at the table, or can they?
Well, the committees are all advisory committees, right?
Right.
Exactly.
So they make recommendations to this board, and this board has final say over everything.
But they're going to show up to our board meeting to talk about their committee with us. And they're gonna, like, let's say, I'm just gonna use you for example, and David Hat's there, right?
Yeah,
Hats.
well, deputy.
Like, would they both be sitting at the table sharing that commit? Like, he's gonna be there as a board member, but would they be there sharing the committee package?
It could be, they don't have to be though.
Okay, no, I just don't know.
See,
I think since they're engaged emotionally, it's like at worst case, it's like what 2 out of 10 votes. Like you're like it's not. It shouldn't matter in the grand scheme. They'll both contribute, both be there.
I got no problem, but I think
Yeah.
I just don't know if they can sit at the table.
I think if any board members say at that table, they should have a voice, and then if some of your community, like I'm fine if it's 2 from if that's your portfolio, we'll call it. And there's and your deputy mayor's on there as your representative, it's not a big deal to be a
Yeah, but that's his 2. But then all of a sudden, I might have 2.
But only if you're on the board, because there'll only be 2 or 3 of us at max on each committee, is what I'm seeing.
Oh, committee time. It's not gonna be an issue.
But when we come here, it's just us.
Is that
Except
okay?
you get the weighted vote depending on what.
Okay,
it is.
so that I get. Okay, that's
So they're just making recommendations. At the end of the day, we get to as a group with our voting scheme that is very simple that we just saw.
Yeah.
I get to decide what the decision is.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, an extra voice at the table
Okay.
isn't gonna.
So they're not going to be at the board meeting. Okay. Then that's
Unless
not-
that doesn't work for you, but that's
No,
why I
no,
kind
no.
of picture it going.
No, that's
And
right.
since it's all brand new, I really think every community should have someone at the table because there's so much that we don't know right now. Like
Right,
we
but
don't know which direction it's even gonna go.
I like playing things out. So I'm just trying to think of the fact though, let's say we're just the boards here. And then we start questioning you on that committee. Like he's going to have to refer to questions sometimes.
And I think that was the concept behind having one, a board member as the portfolio is each committee, so that when they come to the board meeting,
They can answer questions.
but they don't have to worry about concentrating on 3 or 4 committees.
All right, because he's going to be in the know.
And he has to present that committee report as well.
That's right.
That's right.
Or it might not be you. It might be the chair.
Right.
Might be not be the same municipality.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I can visualize that.
I know at the municipal level, the mayor is on every committee. So that's how I think he was saying.
Same way we do.
Yeah.
Ex officio.
It's the same here. The chair of this board is ex officio on every committee.
Yeah, exactly, which is a good handle of.
Doesn't mean they go to every committee, and we're gonna have.
I have a fairly new council, so I go to every one just to, because they're all brand new.
All of them,
Except 2, but I all took 2 out of 8.
So step 1 to figure out like every committee, how many board reps you need on each committee. Would that be step 1 from this perspective? Some of them you've got direction, but some of them is like you said, they're wide open, like economic development. Maybe that's 1, maybe that's 4. Like it's completely up to us, right?
Right.
Okay.
So next question, from what you presented, I firmly believe that tourism and recreation has to be split. Has to be split because they don't have anything in common. I don't think. Well, the people I have chosen to sit on those, one wouldn't know what the other one.
So a good example of how they have things in common would be Coastal Link Trail.
Mm-hmm.
or just actually bring people to community events, bring people as we just went through.
They do, but in the same sense, they are sometimes 2 different people. The people that are passionate about trails in the community, I wouldn't necessarily say they're passionate about tourism. It's almost their own personal lifestyle more than it is but you could argue that trails have something to do with economic development, right? Like they're all of them are, so it's never going to be perfect. But I agree that those two should be separated.
Absolutely.
Just because there is such a big passionate group around recreation in my community, and there's a big passionate group about tourism, and they're 2 different people. They're 2 different groups. So for me, it would be easier to separate those as well.
And I find that in Eastern Charlotte as well. The Eastern Charlotte is 2 different things. What goes on in the arena and the Macadamic Center is altogether different than what we need for tourism and advertising for tourism. They're two different beasts.
I would agree for Fundy Shores as well. With what John and Brad said, we're brand new and we got a big mix. We're actually starting our community engagement in February, and so far we're hearing a lot the same as what they said, that both of them are quite a big big gap for tourism and for recreation.
Okay. Sounds like we have a bit of a consensus on separating them. And I think that's the way we were leaning from our discussions prior to the meeting. So
You need a motion to do that tonight? I asked the question.
Well, probably not, because we haven't even accepted the
Right, we haven't
committees
used
yet, so
yeah.
they're not even a thing yet, so
Okay, no.
we just accept them when we get them built.
It's been added into the minutes.
Right. Could you scroll up just for a second so I can see that list of things?
List of committees?
Yes. All right, our problem, we're gonna have a hard time finding. I probably do a lot of representing. You know what I mean? We're gonna have a hard time finding people to.
You had somebody good for tourism.
Yes.
She's at that meeting I was at.
Diana, well, the other lady, there's two, but one of our councilors would really like to do it. So I guess we got two people kind of, but I don't know if we're allowed to have more than one or not, but anyway, I got one for sure. But.
I've got a really good one for tourism too. The head of the Chamber of Commerce in East Pritchard. She'd be really good.
Great. So I think as a suggestion, so our next meeting is actually not a board meeting, it's a committee of the whole meeting.
Right.
Maybe this would be one of the main topics there that because we really do need to get these committees finalized and stuff, because ideally I would love to be able to have at least some people appointed to committees at our February board meeting. So this is some background information. And again, you guys can contact me anytime between now and then anyway, but our committee of the whole meeting is a little less. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but to kind of work that out.
Hollis, just a quick question here. With the number of committees that we have here, and we're looking for a minimum of 2 board members on each one. If you can do some quick mental math for me, how many committees should each board member be thinking that they should be putting their name in on? At least 2, I would think.
Well, I don't know that we need at least 2 board members on each committee.
Okay.
One we need for sure. But.
One would do. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that. So you had asked earlier that people submit what their first, second, and third, I guess, ideal positions would be, or which boards or which committees would they like to sit on. Can we have people submit those, and then we can determine who's going to be on each one at that February meeting?
Yeah, well, I'll set up like a very, very simple online poll where you pick 1, 2, and 3, and I'll set that up maybe tomorrow. And yeah, if everyone does that, and then we can see. You know, maybe the answer becomes self-evident. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is this on the package you sent us out?
No.
Okay, I was not going to say I'm not finding it. Okay. We used to have regional collaboration.
Right.
Does that, so some of the things that were in that fall under these categories?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, basically all the stuff that would have looked after is now split up into their own official.
Okay, so nothing fell off though, like, okay.
Okay, Bonnie has a question.
Yeah, before we get too far down the road of, talking about who we're nominating, I just want to make sure that I'm clear about what committees we are talking about. So I think that there was some discussion around the community development and what the structure of that was going to be, and the carryover from Vibrant Communities, having people from there. I understand the landfill advisory, we're leaving that, so we don't need anybody on that one. And the PRAC is the same. The public safety piece, I am wondering about that committee, because I did read the information, the sheet from the province that you circulated, Hollis, and I would like to have a little conversation maybe at some point around the structure of that, because I think that the people that are listed there make sense. But I think it goes to the comment earlier, you know, the concerns around public safety on Campobello are different than what they are on Grand Manan, and they're different here than what they are in Macadam or St. Andrews or wherever. And that's been my concern right along with all of these committees, is how do we make sure we have that cross representation without the committee getting so large that it becomes unwieldy. So I did want to have that conversation, I guess, maybe around the community development, to make sure we're still talking about those 3 carryovers from the board plus 8 people, like one from each community. Is that what the conversation is, or what are we thinking about that?
8 seems to be kind of the sweet spot for number on a committee, like 8 total on that kind of a committee. So you could consider the 3 people that are currently on it as being from the communities that they're from. If you want to talk about where they live, where do they live? So one lives in St. Stephen, one lives in St. Andrews, and one lives in actually.
Who is it? We can tell you.
Good chance one of those knows.
You might not be able to mention the name.
Sylvia,
Still,
Brianna, and who was the third one?
Kim?
Kim Reeder. So Kim's from the rural district.
Yeah.
she's from Quebec, right?
Yeah.
So if you wanted to look at it that way, we already have St. Andrews, St. Stephen, and rural district covered. That's one possibility. Getting back to your comment on the Public Safety Committee, the Public Safety Committee is a different kind of an animal. And I can tell you that the committee that's in Kent region, because they've had their Public Safety Committee up and running for a long time, probably has 24 or 25 people on it. So, not saying that that's what we have to do or need to do, but it is possible.
So in theory, we could have the people that are listed in that 2-pager from the province that makes sense. It's like the fire marshal and all of those people. We could have them plus a community representative. Like we have a public safety committee here on Grand Manan. So it would make sense that someone from that committee would be on this committee, is sort of what I have in my head. But I just, before we get too far down the road, I want to make sure that I'm not venturing off down a side road, which I tend to do sometimes. But yeah. I think 24 seems like a really, really big committee, but maybe having the community representation in addition to the subject matter experts makes sense in that case.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, if we had 8 members outside of the public safety officials, we'd be in the 16, 17 range, which is what we had for a board last year. So, you know.
And public safety is a major committee. I mean, it's probably one of the number 1 priorities in the province of New Brunswick is public safety, other than housing.
Does public safety involve fire department stuff?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Just in the rural areas, or
No.
Yours
One fire chief from the area is supposed to be on it.
They're looking for one fire chief from the region.
It would be someone that would be a paid fire person.
Okay.
Do you remember when that was sent out, Thomas?
What
Community development committee got that one.
I can do is I'll send that out again.
Yeah.
Once I find it.
It was about a week ago.
I love hot chocolate too.
It was on the 18th of January.
There you go.
Safety.
Yeah, so again, this is food for thought until maybe the committee of the whole discussion. We can kind of flesh that out, and then
That's what, 2 weeks?
second Thursday.
Yeah, I literally just did our own last night for our town or our entity last night. So,
You're still a town, aren't you?
oh, there's still a town there.
Okay.
It's just in the middle of a big entity.
Okay.
I'd like to have some representation on that public safety one.
Yeah, for sure.
We're lacking.
I think it's actually it's super important that the islands are represented strongly on the public safety committee, because there's additional considerations for Campbell, for Grand Manan, and even for Deer Island.
Exactly, that's
you know.
Oh, we all got to be on it because their troubles when they who they send leaves the town's empty when they go. So we're all connected.
Well, yeah.
Because that's what they do.
Now,
They
like,
rob Peter to pay Paul.
would like coroners and stuff be underneath public safety too?
Yeah.
We see, they took our coroner away from us, right? We had a young lady deceased, 25-year-old deceased, lay on the floor for 4 or 5 hours a couple weeks ago before they could move her because we didn't have a cop that could get there until then. No coroner. That's not acceptable. Not in 2023.
That does include ambulance New Brunswick, correct?
Yes, it does include A&B. So you're the perfect candidate for that.
I'm at work now, and I can tell you Charlotte County's being robbed big time.
You would know firsthand.
Okay. Any other questions, comments on committee makeup? We'll hit that again. Hollis, you'll send that thing out. Yep. And we'll hit her again on our committee of the whole, and hopefully by the end of that meeting, we'll have these committees at least semi-formalized, if not completely.
So the committee of the whole meeting, are we to come with suggestions from our community for that meeting? Is that what I'm understanding for each of these committees that are listed there, except for the ones that we are not?
Right. That's what I would like to see. For example, at my council meeting last night, I went through and identified individuals that I would like to approach, but I wanted council approval before I did that. And then once I get their approval, if they wish to participate in these committees, those will be the Village of Macadam representatives that will be going there. And I suspect most communities will go through that same process of identifying those individuals that they want to see on those committees. And then on top of that, the board members will select whichever committee they want to participate on as well.
It was a really good point.
I agree with Ken on that because we have to, I mean, rightly so, we as mayor, we have to go back to the council before we bring it forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so if we're all good on that one, we'll bring those. Hopefully, we'll all have some names that we can bring forward to the board in February when we meet again. Okay. Next item.
Communication.
The next item that I have is committee. Sorry, before I do that, is there anything under old business or business arising that anybody wants to bring up? Nothing heard. Okay, we'll go to new business. First one is committee of the whole meeting format. And Hollis, you're going to talk to us a little bit about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to put this on there to kind of define what a committee of the whole meeting is and give it a little bit of structure so it isn't just a kind of a free-for-all. But again, I'm open. You guys are actually more used to this than I am because you've had working sessions in these types of committees at municipal level and I haven't at this level. But what I'm seeing is reports from each committee, and they're prepared by respective staff and then given by the associated board member at our committee of the whole. Those could be saved for the regular board meetings, but there should be at least some context, I think, at this committee of the whole meeting. And the idea being that if a board member brings forth what's been happening in their committee, and there's more clarity required around a subject or something like that before it gets to the board meeting, that discussion can happen before it gets to a board meeting, and then so that when the report is given, then there's a good understanding. If there's any known motions coming from a committee, that are going to go to the board at the committee of the whole meeting, this would be a good place to bring them out, just so that board members aren't blindsided at the board meeting and understand what the motion is about. And if they have questions about what that motion is going to be, they have the opportunity to find out more before they get to the actual board meeting. And if there's any other random new business that comes up outside of committees, the committee of the whole, there'd be a place for it there. The other part of the committee of the whole is it's going to replace the functions of the executive committee in terms of what goes on a board meeting agenda. But it's also going to function as the HR committee and the finance and audit committee. So any business that previously would have happened in those committees would have to happen at the committee of the whole. So as an example, at our next committee of the whole meeting, the auditors are going to meet with us because they're starting their audit. So that will happen there. The HR committee is really just about me because I'm your only employee. So if you're going to fire me, this is where you kick me out of that meeting.
You don't need the committee, just put it in the committee of the whole.
Yeah. If you're going to, but also for, say, my performance review.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
It would kind of happen there instead of the HR committee.
And these are planned for the second Thursday of the month. Right?
Yeah. The only thing is that we need to be a little bit mindful of what happens at these committees and what's discussed, so there aren't actual decisions and things like that being made, because it has to happen in a public forum. But if you guys have any other input into what goes on in these committees and that I've missed, please let me know.
So I'm a little struggling with the meeting for the meeting. Like I don't want to have too many meetings. But why can't we just do the community hall during our board meeting? If there's something that we can't receive from that board member that's on the committee and they need time, we just either table it or the odd time that we can't handle it. It won't be that many times, would it? But in the same token, we're still having the committee hall meeting then. So to add that to that, I guess is
the only problem with that is it could be a lot later. I mean, if you're going to discuss all the things that are going to come forward and then go to a regular meeting, that could be a long night.
Well, no, we wouldn't be having a separate meeting. We just have our board meeting and it would get discussed when we discuss that committee during our board, which we do. Then you discuss it during that committee. If it's something that's needs more discussion, definitely.
I think it's a good place to bring things forward that you're intending to kind of bring to the board meeting, but people might need more.
So you're looking for a motion to go into the committee of the whole during that meeting.
But
to take it to a regular board meeting.
The citizens need to see our struggles so that they also give us feedback as representatives too. I mean, I don't want to be hiding behind meetings, not that we're hiding, but just.
No, and I think that's an important point. Like we don't want to.
Like they need to know our struggle. Like if it's something that takes discussion, they need to know we're having those discussions. And then you're at the superstore shop and they say, hey, I saw you talking about whatever. And they give you some feedback and helps you make your decision based on the pulse of the community.
Does it make sense to have a special meeting versus a committee of the whole meeting between the regular meetings? That still gives the opportunity, if there is a decision that needs to be made, you can do it there. So we're not trying to jam everything into a regular meeting, but it still gives the functionality of the committee of the whole. And then if there are items we need to do in closed session so they're not public, I think 2 weeks ago we streamed that meeting anyway. So really the difference between a special meeting or committee of the whole is relatively negligible in that case, isn't it?
Okay, well,
You can't make motions at a committee of the whole meeting, but you can at a special meeting.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, is if instead of having committee of the whole, if it was a special meeting, then we could do the decision making. And so we're not trying to do everything in the one night a month.
For you, Mr. Chair, that we keep forgetting about because you're on that screen.
No.
We don't want to turn our board meeting into a short, sweet rubber stamp night either. That becomes pointless too, right? Because we've already beat it to death in our committees and our special meeting or whatever meeting. And then we come in here and then that's just like, we already went through the process and it's just.
So it's not showing any debate. That's dangerous too.
Fair point. So the committee of the whole could really just be the committee that replaces the HR and finance and audit and executive committee and any of that other stuff. Like those were committees.
No. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of noise from someone. Yeah, that might have been you, Claudette.
That would be my crazy dogs playing behind me. Yeah. Sorry about that.
What I've always found, like committee of the whole, I find that they're useful for bringing out information that generally in a more formal format people are not really willing to do. It's a little more freewheeling, a little more open. We can focus on some of the things that Hollis has suggested. The other thing, you know, there's no set format here that we have to follow, and it's up to us as a whole to make that decision on how we want to move forward with this. What we might do then is, if there's some question as to how the committee of the whole is going to function, it might be something that we try for a couple of months and we see whether it pans out. If it's something that we no longer wish to utilize, then maybe we cut it down into something else or we eliminate it altogether and just go to the board. I think the utility is either going to come forward or it's not in those first 2 or 3 months that we do this. And if we find that it's not, utilitarian, then I would suspect that we would lean towards either paring it back or eliminating it altogether. If you guys are open to that, I do as well.
I agree with Mayor Stanix on that. Give it a try for a while and just see what happens. And it's a good tool to use for somebody that's new. Mayor Denny, he's fairly new, so this gives him a chance to talk more because the cameras aren't on. So it makes it a little more comfortable for him and anybody else new too.
So is everybody happy with moving forward with that idea in mind? On the
I have one question about this that did come up, Mr. Chair, and that is the per diem part, which is going to be segue nicely into my next thing. But is the per diem for a committee of the whole going to be the same as a board meeting, or is it a committee meeting?
The way I approach that is on my own turf. I approach that as the same thing as a council meeting. So it's in this case, it would be the same thing as a board meeting. That's the way I run them in the village, because we're talking about the same types of things. It's the same people around. The only difference is we're not making decisions. We're preparing ourselves for that decision-making process at the formal council meeting.
Okay.
Guess nobody's disagreeing with that.
No, everybody's happy with that explanation. Okay. Okay, if there's nothing else on this item, I'll leave one last round. Any comment? No? Okay. Expenses and per diem submission. I know Hollis has a new way of maybe perhaps we can do that more efficiently.
Sorry, just give me 1 second here.
I thought everything had gone dead on me.
Yeah.
It's just things are hiding behind other things.
Yeah.
Okay. So, because there's a lot more committee and a lot more complexity to the administrative part of SNBSC, and the expense claims are going to get way more complicated. And I've dumped a lot more work on Claudette. So what I've done is I've created an online expense claim, and I would like everybody to start using this instead of the old sheets. And you will find this is way simpler, way easier. And what will happen is we're just going to, if we don't hear from you otherwise, we're just going to pay you automatically every quarter. And if we have your banking info, we can even direct deposit it as part of our payroll if you want. The mileage does not play into that, but you still claim for your mileage, but we can't automatically pay the mileage because we don't know what that is. Well, we do,
But it's different for everybody.
but as far as payroll goes. So how you get to this, and you guys can do this right now, and if you get in the habit of doing it in the meeting or as you leave the meeting or as you get to the meeting, then you don't ever have to think about it. You just go to rsc10.org, and there's a button there that says expense claim.
Also, it's not an app. It's actually on a.
It's a, yeah.
RAC now? RAC10?
Right there.
.org.
rsc10.org.
Okay, gotcha.
Lowercase.
Slash.
And you'll see this. And if you click, you put in your name, you click board meeting, kilometers, tell it you're not a robot, and hit continue. That's it.
And that'll go to let whoever and.
Yeah, all the stuff goes into a database that you can filter out and sort and then pay the people and all that kind of
I
stuff.
love it.
If it's a committee meeting, you click committee meeting, and the committees will pop up. So you pick which committee. That's an automatic thing. If it's a different kind of a meeting for some reason, that's there, or if there's a different kind of an expense that you put in. Staff uses this too for other expenses, so it's the same expense form. And that's it. It's as simple as I can't make it any more
Put
simple.
your name in and board meeting. Should it wouldn't, you don't care, or you don't care which committee meeting it is?
Yep. If you're going into here, you know what? I'll show you live.
The thing is just date if someone does get behind.
Yeah.
They submit to board back to back.
Yeah.
But it's really user friendly and
Oh my
good.
goodness, I guess.
That's great.
That's
I
the
need
main
more of
reason
that stuff.
I don't do them on time because I hate you.
I've never done one.
The value's just not worth the input sometimes.
Then when I got
So hard.
How far back can you go?
Oh, ask Claudette that question.
Claudette, how far back can we go?
Actually, at least a year.
All right. 1 year.
I just did one for another member, and it was for 2 years. It's really Mark Porter that frowns upon it, not me.
Something to 2 years.
So this is the live site. So if you go to rsc10.org, that's what you get. And you click expense form. It comes up. It'll show better on your phone. So you just put in your name. If it's a board meeting, it'll ask you what the date is. So you can just pick the date. If it's a committee meeting, it'll ask you.
I knew that had to be somewhere.
That's great.
Which committee, or if it's other. If it's a different kind of a meeting, put in, let us know what it was and when the date was and any kilometers you're claiming. And if it's some kind of different expense, you just click other. So.
Do I get a record of the one I just inputted? So I know I done it? errors that just disappear once I hit send.
I can put an email field in there and it'll email you a copy if you want.
I think that might be a good idea,
That would be good, yeah.
because I would have trouble
Yeah.
knowing if I did it or
If
not.
it's not too big of an,
Even though that's easy, I still might wait and forget.
that's,
Is the
That's
kilometers
amazing.
both way or just one way, right?
Both ways.
Both ways. Wonder how many kilometers.
However far you drove.
How far is it from Camp Bowden, yeah? 62 miles.
50.
what's your address? What's your home address?
Crazy.
46 Bunker Hill Crossroads.
Yeah, you just Google map it, yeah.
So on these claims, Hollis, we do this for every meeting?
Yep.
Okay.
You Google it or something?
84 kilometers is the fastest.
That's one way.
Yeah.
That's one way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be 150
168.
68 for you. That's door to door from here.
cents.
Not on the truck, you know.
I gotta buy-
diesel.
I gotta see if they can
He's
get
got
one
his
of
McDonald's.
those electric cars home.
You'd be rich. You'd still be money out.
This is fabulous.
So if everybody gets in the habit of just open up your phone and doing this when you're at the meeting,
Yeah, I just did two.
Yeah, it should be an agenda item.
put in your expense.
5 minutes of silence.
You get the ratings to go down.
Seriously though, that is above and beyond. So thank you.
Okay, your claim has been submitted. That was easy.
I did the.
I might actually do one of these on now.
I did the-
I've never done one either.
I did the
I'm gonna go back.
I did the one 2 weeks ago. I did this tonight.
On the expenses,
Mom and dad.
we need everybody's, if we don't have it already, we need everybody's TD1 because we have to. Per diems are income, mileage is not.
Yeah.
T1.
If we don't already have-
Hollis, Hollis, will this work? Just a second. Can you see?
Not well, but if I do
It's,
something.
I just wanted to show you that 20 seconds ago, Harvey Matthews board meeting, John Craig board meeting, and Bonnie Morse board meeting, all is shown on my computer right now.
Oh, so they come in already. Okay.
Yeah.
I do have one question.
Yeah, go ahead, Bonnie. Bonnie has a question.
I'm probably the only one this is going to pertain to, but I do have a ferry receipt from time to time when I attend in person. Is there a way for me to attach it to the expense claim, or do I just email that separately?
That's a separate, there's other expense, and that would be where that goes.
Kind of like the ice caps.
Okay, any other questions on per diems? Expense forms? Looks simple. We'll give her a try. Thank you on that one.
Or just went.
Committee and staff reports. Oh, sorry, under new business. We should go to the search and rescue one. Charlotte County Ground Search and Rescue. Hollis.
Okay, so I've had a discussion with them earlier, and I just got this today. I sent it out to everybody. I don't know if you had a chance to read it, but basically, their mobile unit, Claudette, we're getting a lot of noise from your end. It might be your thing, I don't know. But anyway, so their mobile unit is essentially dead, and they're looking for a new one. And they've got some money promised them from RDC, as well as a few other organizations. And they have done their own fundraising. They're a little short, probably, I guess, well, she said up to $7,500. So it's probably between $5,000 and $7,500. But the other piece of this is that they don't have the ability to, they would need to pay for the unit, and then RDC would reimburse them. And they don't have the ability to actually do that. They don't have enough money in the bank to just pay for it outright and then get the RDC money back. So what they're asking is essentially that we carry that on their behalf, and then when they get the money back, it comes back to us. In other words, we act as like a bank, or like bridge financing, or just whatever you want to call that. That's the other, and then the other part of the request is they're looking for a little bit of money towards whatever the balance is. I think it's $47,000. Yeah.
Okay. I guess if we do, so first of all, we've done this before for other organizations. We're kind of a flow through. The money comes in and then it goes right back out again. There's no administrative costs or anything associated with that. I'll just clarify, there is no administrative costs with this, right, Hollis?
No, except for the additional donation they're looking for.
Right. So now the additional donation of $7,500. In the past, when we've supported these, it's done on a proportional basis within each of the entities within RSC 10. So the 8 entities would all pay a portion of this, and I think it's based on population, is it not, Hollis?
I think it's 50-50 population tax base.
Okay. So we would look at something like that, and that gives you some idea of what it would cost your community to support this. It's certainly not a lot of money to support it for each of the communities. So that's where that falls in. Now that $7,500, where does that come from, Hollis? Should the board agree to this? Which budget or stovepipe is it coming out of? Because it's not been budgeted for.
No, but it would fall under cooperative and regional.
Okay.
Which is the general catch-all for that kind of thing, which is the 50-50 contribution. It's 50% population, 50% tax base for that particular line item. So it would come out of that.
Okay. So that's, I just asked those questions as opening the discussion. Now I'll open it to the floor for comments and questions.
I have a question.
Yep.
Are they approaching the municipalities as well? Because if I'm going to literally pay here and pay there.
Yeah, two, yeah.
Well, I think this is it. From my understanding is they've got the money from RDC. They have gotten funding from they got some funding from their own fundraising. Mm-hmm. They got some funding from some private sources. I think maybe Cook Agriculture or somebody kicked in. Yeah. Yeah. So there's so once they get this last piece, they would there is no more money to get. So as far as I know, they're not going to ask. I'm not going to make any promises here because I'm just a messenger, but as far as it seems like they're not going to ask municipalities. Instead of asking municipalities individually, they're asking us as a whole. Which is, I think, is a good idea because we're all here. Plus the LSD areas there. We're all at the table. I agree. This is perfect. But yeah, just want to make sure. Yeah, I think that was the intent. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
The question I have is how much money is in that budget at this moment? If we're giving out, say, if there's a motion on the table for $7,500, how much is going to be left in that budget? Not a lot, but there's going to be a surplus there because we budgeted $25,000 for the medical search that we never spent. I'll make a motion that we give $7,500 to the ground search and rescue.
Can I have a seconder? Okay, I see Harvey's hand went up there pretty quick. You guys all look pretty small to me on that screen on that right hand side, so thanks. You're looking even smaller. Are there Are there any other comments, discussion on this before we go to a vote? Okay, the motion is on the floor. We've had no other comments. There's a seconder there. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay, thank you very much. Motion passed. Okay, next one on the list was about Eastern Charlotte office open. Sorry, Hollis, go ahead. Yeah.
There's a second part to their ask, and I don't know if you want a motion on that or us to flow through the funding.
Well, yeah, I guess we could. I just assumed that once we were putting money into it, we were going to flow that money through. We've done this for many other organizations. One of them being the transportation, one being the trail, and it's there's no administrative cost to doing that, other than it does take a little bit of manpower within RSC 10 to make that happen, as Claudette could probably tell you, but it's minimal. So if everybody is in agreement that we will flow that money through on behalf of the search and rescue organization, could I have somebody make that motion?
I'll motion it.
Okay, Harvey, a seconder?
I'll second it.
Okay, thanks, Brad. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Motion passed. Any nays? Okay. Is that good, Hollis?
Great.
Okay. John, you brought up the item for the next one, office opened in Eastern Charlotte. That's what I have written down. Do you want to speak to that one?
Basically, Eastern Charlotte should have a building on its own, or at least an office for people to want to get building permits, building inspectors, the whole development. Part of it should be, we should have an office in Eastern Charlotte, because we also have Fundy Shores in our end too, which is a huge, huge area, and of course Grand Manan as well too. So the three of us are way to the other end, and people shouldn't have to travel as far to all the way to St. Stephen, which is at the very end of the whole area. So I think there should be at least another off. I'm not saying close this one. I'm saying on top of that, we have another one on Eastern Charlotte.
Can I speak to that, Mr. Chair?
Sure. Yep.
I couldn't agree more. But it goes beyond just building inspectors and stuff.
Yeah.
We're going to have people working down there for economic development, for tourism, for recreation and community development. It would be helpful for us to have a home base down there in that region somewhere.
Great.
I've actually spoken about this before, and I 100% would like to have it a satellite office. It'll be a flex office kind of thing. There was one space I can't get that I wanted, but yes, I'm totally supportive of having an additional office down that way as a second home base. We may be working down that way, but on top of that, I had already spoken to Fundy Shores, and they're going to be our test pilot. We're going to put a kiosk at the Fundy Shores Municipal Office where people can go in and apply for a building permit, and if there's other app online, we're doing more and more online, as you can tell. So that there's a couple of reasons why. First of all, it's an hour's drive to the municipal office from here.
Absolutely.
But second of all, it's better in the mind of the resident if they go into the municipal office and get their building permit there, and they understand that it's not the Regional Service Commission, it's the actual municipality. So once we get that up and running, we also would like to have one in Grand Manan, probably Camp Bell, anywhere that is closer, further away from here. We could probably once we kind of get the system down, it wouldn't be difficult to put one in St. Andrews or anywhere else either.
So the person in the municipal office would be able to help that person.
Exactly.
That's what I was going to ask you about. Us going through you guys. I was hoping we were still gonna do the building permit anyway and just send it in to you guys. Is that how we was gonna do that or?
Well, it's still your building permit, right? It's still a Campobello building permit. But we have a whole building permit process.
That's going to involve not even having to come in.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Well, like, what I meant was we already do them now. So I was assuming we was just gonna keep doing that and then send them to you or whatever for the other part of it.
What'll happen is we'll make it easier for you.
That's perfect. I don't, that's fine with me, I guess.
But beyond that, and I didn't want to hijack your comment.
Yeah,
But we recognize the need to provide service in greater geography.
What do you need from the board to move that forward? Is there money already in the budget that you can do that on your own, or do you need something from us? Or because it's a question. I just like to see them move forward.
Just because it's a little different. The council, we haven't asked that it's involving kind of staffing in a new building. That'd be something that's part of the annual budget process, where it's kind of earmarked versus add-on.
No. But we can look for it. We can certainly look.
Yeah, so it gets a little complicated with us. To give you an example, this building here is actually owned by Solid Waste. Solid Waste invested money here, and we kind of rent it. It's all on paper, but it's one bank account. But we rent it from the Solid Waste silo. And now that we have split up, this floor is the building services floor, the planning floor. So planning, building inspection happens all up on this floor. Downstairs is where economic development, tourism, community development, recreation, myself. So it's a corporate floor, but it's also all of those services downstairs. So that I can split it 50-50 in terms of, so it gets a little complicated. I'll have to do a little work on that, but and figure out exactly how it's going to work and where it might fit in the budget.
Can I make a suggestion? I mean, you just talked about a solution here. It's working for you. Why couldn't Eastern Charlotte benefit by renting? Did you have room? I don't know. Maybe you don't have room, but rent space out of your municipality.
Yeah, our municipal office.
Same way.
It has no extra room.
Oh,
I think I knew that.
Yeah.
All right.
We just had to make enough room.
But that way, that would just show we are working together. It benefits and benefits both parties, which is what we're supposed to be doing. But if you don't have the room, that's not.
And just to clarify that if Eastern Charlotte or if Danny up in his area, the new region there, if they get kiosks, can the people from the closest rural district areas go in and use those kiosks so at any one of those points? So for example, Deer Island, and rather than drive all the way to St. Stephen, they could go to St. George and do it there.
Eastern Charlotte.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
I like the I don't want to butt in there, but I like
go ahead,
the
Danny.
kiosk idea, but I agree with John that I think that more closer we do need a physical building. I think the kiosks are good for a trial to see, and they may work out well. For us, we're brand new, so it kind of would fit in for us for the interim, I guess, because we do have somebody in the office that that is there right now that kind of can do the job to help out. But I do agree with John 100% that we need a physical structure closer this way, especially in the next. Hopefully, I'm hoping here that if we can get a new municipal building and we're going to have a lot going on, I'm hoping with Point Pro over the next couple of years. So I think a physical structure there with staff and that closer to us would be a benefit. I know Eastern Charlotte and Fundy Shores, Brampton, for sure.
Yeah, I've listened to the conversation, and I'm not totally clear on what we're trying to accomplish. I know we want to extend the service. I'm not sure what I'm hearing here as far as what the business plan is, whether it can be made to pay for itself, whether it's subsidized. So there would have to be a lot more go into it from that perspective. I like the idea of kiosks if you have somebody within the staff already at those locations that could understand how to fill out one of those forms online, and then questions from that point go somewhere else. But the bottom line for me is the service. Yes, you got to give the service, but you have to be able to do that within a profit-making, decision-making process, I guess. So you'd have to have a business plan as to how it's going to pay for itself.
Very good point.
I think it's a great idea. We just need to expand on it. Get a better system of notes put together so that we can make an informed decision on which way we want to go with it. What are the options? What's the cost? How do we pay for it? Those kinds of things.
We just leave that with Hollis for now, and he can come back to the board with his recommendations. I guess.
Yeah. It was nice to hear that Hollis has already been looking at it, so there's been some thought there already.
Yeah.
So hopefully it won't take too much to bring that forward.
So my takeaway here, my action point, would be to create and present a proposal to the board about an office in Eastern Charlotte.
I think that's the underlying, but I think what we need to do is we need to have options as to how we can provide that service. So as our motto goes, we provide the best service. So we need to be able to take a look at how we're going to provide that service. Do we have to do that through leasing property? Do we have to do that by buying property? Do we have to do that by setting up a kiosk? Do we do that? My immediate thought is, do we send our experts out to handle those on a portion of a day, maybe a couple of days a week? I don't know what our capabilities are. Do we have the staffs at the other end at the municipal level assist customers or clients who are coming in seeking to fill out those forms? Do we have that expertise available? Do we train them? What is the cost associated with each of the options that are being put forward? And then how do we make it pay for itself in each of those options? So when we start filtering that information out, there should be a clear option that will come forward as the best option.
Okay, so
I know that's quite a mouthful there, but
no, I will take that away and do my homework and then come back to the board with.
Okay.
You were saying you had other departments that could benefit from this, right?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, like tourism promotion, for instance, are going to want a place to be able to either meet with stakeholders or conduct this, because we have a lot of different services, a lot of different work that we're going to need to do in all parts of the region. And it would be simpler, for instance, if we're doing a whole bunch of things, if we gang up all the stuff from Eastern Charlotte, Fundy Shores, Graham and Ann, Deer Island, like that whole, and we do that work out of that office on those couple of days, and rather than traveling back and forth all the time from here.
So a suggestion, because we have these flex office type things in the works in our area that are separate from the municipality, we as a developer on their own. Could we encourage that same thing in that area? They may have something that might be just that one piece they need to make the development fly, so they could add it to it.
Yeah.
Like, and then where you go, and then you could use that flex office.
Yeah.
For so many days a week, I guess.
Could work.
Because we're going to that, we're in times right now where people are going away from offices, and here we are adding more. So we gotta, either improve the service so they don't even need to go anywhere, or, but again, if you gotta meet people, you gotta meet people. So.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of that. I'm not even really thinking about the building permit application part. We can solve that with kiosks in the municipal office, and I think that puts the municipal identity on top of the building permits more so than going to the Regional Service Commission to do it. I think that's a good idea. I'm thinking it's more about all the other services than building permits.
Okay. I think it's a good idea. Let's put a little more flesh on the bones,
Mm.
and we can discuss it at well, whenever you're able to bring that forward, Hollis. I would say within a month. Is that okay with everybody?
I can
It works for Hollis.
I can bring that back to the February board meeting, and it's one of those special votes, I think.
Oh, I get two votes.
Maybe, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay.
It's gonna take some time, but, I mean, if you get it by February,
No.
Yeah, I know you've got a lot of stuff on your plate there, Hollis. So this is something that we can look at, I would suspect, over the next 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
Any other last comments on this one? John, are you okay with that?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, on that. We'll move into committee and staff reports, the executive director's report.
I actually didn't name that right, but it's the same thing, so I'm not offended. So I sent that out in your package. It's a one-pager this time. It's got some annual stuff. So solid waste, a little under 2021, not by much. I don't even think it's a statistical significant difference. No particular reason for that, but it didn't hurt us financially. So, and building permits, so 2022 slowed down a little bit over 2021. 2021 was a record-breaking year. I don't think we're ever going to see that. Well, I won't say that, but
no.
But a lot of, I think what we were seeing in 2022 was a lot of people started stuff in 2021, but it took so long to get done and get things delivered and get people in place that, you know, they wound up in 2022 and they might, so this is, you know, this hasn't played out yet. We'll see what this year brings. I'm not anticipating that 2023 is going to be higher than 2022, but we'll see. Still very busy. So just moving on to strategic planning, which is our next thing that we're going to be concentrating on over the next few months. So I've got secured $50,000 from the CCBF. But then there's another amount that I can get from RDC as well that we could match depending on what the bids come out to. I have it, terms of reference already pretty well completed to put out, and I'm going to put that out the next week. And then once I get the results back from the RFP and the bids back, I will be bringing that to the board. What I'm going to do depends on how many bids I get. The problem is there's 11 other regional service commissions also doing the same thing. So we're going to tackle the pool of consultants here pretty quickly, but I'm going to, whatever the results are, I'm going to score the top 3 and I'll present those to the board. Just score it on an objective basis. And just so you know, and then you guys can make the final call on which one we go with. Just so everybody's clear, the strategic planning, this is for a consultant to come in and help us with this planning, and this planning is for all of the new services plus the Regional Service Commission as a whole. So the visioning, the reviewing mission statement if we have to, and going through the strategic plan. The goal was to create a 5-year plan and have this completed by July 1st. The July 1st date wasn't a date that I said or anybody else said other than provincial government. I think realistically, we might have some broad strokes down by July 1st, but it's not going to be a complete polished product by July 1st. It's impossible. There's just not enough time. But we'll see what we can do. And finally, on the local governance reform part, just to update everybody, so all of our personnel have been hired, the initial people. So we have Director of Economic Development in place. We have our Tourism and Recreation Director and our Community Development Coordinator who came to us from Vibrant Communities. They're all in place and they're all working. And Economic Development, she's kind of hit the ground running. She's had a lot of meetings with a lot of different people, and she's put together. I think she's going to work out extremely well. You know, the tourism and recreation person, and many of you probably know the community development coordinator, which is from Environment Communities. So things are off to a good start that way. Right now, it's a lot of data gathering, even in economic development. We were talking about that today. We need some baseline data like population mean and labor force market data before we can even think about making a plan around it. You can't make a plan unless you know what the data is. So that's where we are. That's my report, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any comments of Hollis on the CEO report? Or I guess the executive director's report. I'm aging myself. Okay. The 2022 financial snapshot is next.
Okay, so I've included that in your package that I sent out. I just want to be clear that this is not a final financial report, as we're still doing some year-end stuff. Really, the real year-end is going to be the audited financial statements that we're going to start that process next month. But this is just to give you an idea of actual versus budget from last year. One of the changes that we had made to the 2023 budget in order to not increase tipping fees this year was to get what I think is a closer estimate on U.S. waste. So I think if we look at the waste totals, we're a little higher in most of the areas. We expected to be a little bit higher because we were conservative budgeting on, you know, Western Valley, ICI, C&D, and the other stuff. Where we were way off is U.S. We got way more than what we had budgeted for. So I'm hoping this year's budget is a little bit more accurate. It's still going to be conservative. This means that we're going to have a pretty healthy surplus this year overall.
Okay.
And if we go down to the second page, which is your expenses, we held expenses in line with budget for the most part. The only you'll notice the solid waste operational is higher. A lot of that is diesel, which would end up being a lot more than we thought it was going to be. But the other expenses are pretty well in line with where we thought. We saved a little money on recycling. Nothing of note, I don't think, in anything else, unless anybody else has any questions.
I'm just going down through. I was going to ask, what was the total amount that we've spent on recycling? Sorry.
312.
312.
Yeah, we budgeted 368.
Okay. That's quite a reduction from the 440,000 we were spending a few years ago.
Well, the switch to the processor that we use now saved us a lot because they were going back empty anyway. They were bringing down waste from Western Valley, like their regular garbage, and that truck was going back empty. So we cut a deal with them. So that saved us a bunch.
Okay, good. Okay, is this the $1,072,000? Is that the amount that we're expecting at the end of the year once the audit, rough numbers, that will be surplus to the budget for the 2022?
I had a chat with Mark the other day. It's probably going to be more like 800,000.
Okay. What we had done as a board in the past is we were having these, I guess, surpluses. And we decided that what we would do with those surpluses is we would take 50% of the surplus each year, and that would be put towards capital reserve. And then the other 50% would go into a fund that would go back to the municipalities. as to undertake green projects or to help environmental projects so that we could lessen our carbon footprints within our communities. Was it 2 years ago? We had about, it was about $1 million as well, Hollis, and that should be coming available soon.
I think it was about 700,000, Mr. Chair.
Okay. When will that be available to be dispersed to the municipalities?
I don't want to speak without talking to Mark first.
So let's leave that for a discussion point at our next meeting.
Could through you, Mr. Chair, just a clarity question. Is that something that automatically transfers to the municipalities, or is that something you apply to get those funds?
Yeah. In the way we had set that up was that the communities would apply for their portion or explain how their portion was going to be spent. So, for example, if you wanted to set up solar panels, or if you wanted to set up a wind farm, or potentially you want to put insulation in a building to reduce your carbon footprint. Pretty much anything that would lessen your community's impact on the environment would be acceptable. So that's kind of how we looked at it. We wanted to be able to show our communities that when there are surpluses, that money is coming back to us. But we wanted to make sure that it was coming back in a friendly manner, so that the money is going to these environmental projects, whatever you deem those to be at the municipal level. So I knew this year, 23, I think was the first year we were going to try this. And so I just wanted to get that marker out on the
Okay. And when you say municipalities, that also includes the rural district?
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't mean to disclude you at all there, Jim.
And I would, the details of this haven't been worked out yet because this is new and this is, it's up to you guys how you want to do it. But as a suggestion, I would take this, because this is going to be a grant that comes back from Regional Service Commission to municipalities or rural community or rural district, and leverage it. So there's a lot of times where you might be able to apply for Fed money or something like that, but as long as you have a partner, well, you can be that partner.
Turn $1 into 3.
Yeah.
So my mind works creatively here, so just bear with me. But if I was build a health clinic in town and I wanted $700,000, and that carbon footprint would be citizens not traveling to St. John or Fredericton, is that considered green? I'm just being, throwing shit on walls here.
I like it.
But first of all, where's the surplus coming from?
Surplus comes from
So then that goes to the point is what I'm all for green here, guys, but shouldn't we be setting our business case so we pay for what we're doing and not having surpluses, or invest the surplus in so it saves us money later in the landfill? So, we're always spending money out there, but I'm trying to get clarity on that.
Yeah, we looked at that, Al, and we had come to the conclusion that our capital reserve is very healthy, and we have the money to, and with the money that would be coming in annually, we would have enough to look after the operation of RSC 10. So this surplus really, I guess when we discussed it before, we were loath to drop the tipping fee because that tipping fee, if we didn't have that set income coming in, we could have a drop with the American refuse that's coming in. And if that should fall below what we had anticipated, then we could find ourselves in a financial difficulty for that particular year before we could raise rates in the following year. So it was, we've talked to the auditors about this as well. The auditors thought that we should be trying to run a tighter ship when we do our estimates in the fall in order to get those budgets put in place. But every time we go through this exercise, it's difficult on the American side. So in this budget, or in this account that we've seen, that was at about the 1.7 million mark when we had estimated that it was going to come in at about 1.2. And those are just rough numbers. But we ran into a situation just last year, or 2 years ago with COVID. We thought we were not going to get the refuse that we had planned on coming through. That turned out not to happen. Then we ran into a situation last year where the folks that were normally sending the refuse to us, that company was purchased by another company that had landfills that we thought they might take that material to, which would end up losing us a whole bunch of income on that side. So there's a lot of balance that has to take place here when we do these budgets each year. And so that was our solution, was that we would take half of that and we would turn that back rather than run into the risk taking that we might have to do in order to reduce tipping fees and those kinds of things. Hollis, speak up anytime. But that was my take on it.
No, you pretty much nailed it. I do want to add one other thing that the board may or may not be aware of, but as of this year, we used to have a cap on our reserve, on our operational reserve of 5%, that we no longer have a cap. And that's just regional service commissions, municipalities still do, I believe.
Yeah.
But we don't have a cap. So, and what this does is when we get to the end of the year, instead of declaring a surplus, which comes back second year after, you can take the extra money and put it into an operational reserve in December and take it back out in January by motion. So that you don't have to. So we might have a doubling up effect next year of this. So we have surplus this year plus our second year surplus from 22. Means that there's going to be some money available.
So the reason they have those caps in municipalities is so we're not charging our citizens more tax than we need to.
Right.
Yeah, we control our budget to take it year to year. That's the reason for it. So again, then I go back to the fact that if we're providing the service and we're getting a surplus, we should be reevaluating how we're. But is the majority of our surplus?
Yep.
Okay, so that's so different. Because really, we're paying for our service, and
we're making profit.
Yeah.
That's a good problem versus the other way around.
Well, yeah.
That's the uncertainty right there. We have no guarantee that would ever happen again any year. Mm-hmm. It's just on a year-to-year basis that they bring their stuff here.
Is that's 9% profit, or obviously
well, no, it's not 100% profit. That's how much money that's how much revenue we got from.
Gotta keep on. Every amount of space they take up is more we have to build.
Right. We've at the same time, if you look at our expenses and if you look at each category of our expenses over the last few years, you'll see that they haven't gone up. And the reason that they haven't gone up is because we've been chasing efficiencies in a lot of different places. We've done a lot of process improvement. We've made a lot of changes. So, it's not gone down a huge amount, but it hasn't gone up like everything else has. The only thing I couldn't control last year was diesel price, but that compactor burns 300-400 liters a day. Just the compactor.
So,
any
other questions on that one?
Extension question.
Solar power.
I don't know how you charge it.
You got a whole friggin' bunch of communities paying for that. I burn that much every day in my vote. Maybe I need to put in for a grant.
Okay, Hollis, if you could check on that for us, and to me, I'm pretty, I think the board's pretty open to how that money gets spent and how you interpret environmental impact with that money. Okay. So that was it for that. Before I go to the date and time of the next regular meeting, is there anything else anybody would like to bring up?
Do you need a motion to accept the director's report and the financial report? You don't usually do that. We do.
And yeah, so anything else?
Is there anybody else? Any comments, questions? No? Date and time of our next regular meeting will be February 23rd, 2022 at 6 p.m. That should be 2023, eh?
I missed it.
So 23.
I'm in a time machine.
Will that be here again or?
So that's the next regular meeting. What is the date for our working session?
The 9th.
That's going to be the 9th of Feb?
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are at 6 p.m. as well.
Yes, unless you guys want to do something different, February 9th at 6 o'clock.
I think that's good.
And that's what meeting's that?
Either whole.
Be here too, this office?
Or you can zoom
Yeah.
in from your boat.
I might have to. I missed it the other night. I forgot all about it last night. I apologize.
It looks good.
Well, Hollis should text me or something, say, don't forget about that meeting tonight, because I get forgetful sometimes.
Hollis, do we have any questions from the public?
I don't have anything, Mr. Chair.
Okay. At this point, if nobody else has anything, I will certainly entertain a motion to adjourn.
Who's our new dentist?
Oh.
Who's our new-
Thanks, Jim.
If you're watching, ask permission, bud.
Thank you very much, everybody. I'll try to be there in person next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
She was glad she didn't have to take the family up there.
Didn't even start running until 3:30.
Not gonna say.